Hey, how's it going? This is Luke Dooley, and I help lead our work here at Ocean. And we've been having these live conversations with some friends of Ocean and some alumni of one of our cornerstone programs. It's called Genesis Entrepreneurship Training. And we're back today for another one of these conversations. We're doing it a little earlier than usual. Usually these are after lunch, but we decided to switch it up a little bit, have it in the morning before lunch. And I want to tell you a little bit about just a kind of a fun story about Ocean before I introduce our guest. See, Ocean is this organization. We're about 7 years old, and we started out training high-tech entrepreneurs. That was sort of how Ocean got its start, was this high-tech accelerator. And then if I was to fast forward and leave out all sorts of incredible detail and God in the midst of all of it, what happened was at some point there was this organic group of activity happening around Cincinnati for entrepreneurs that were more Main Street, small business, lifestyle entrepreneurs. And they were meeting and they were hanging out and they were having lots of fun. And the leaders of that group were beginning to say, what would it look like to train people in this method, in this way of entrepreneurship, but with this sort of faithful edge? And then we're over here at Ocean doing high-tech entrepreneurs, doing that work. And these organizations sort of came together about 4 years ago, and Ocean Accelerator became Ocean Programs. And one of the next things that launched out of Ocean was this thing called Genesis. And Genesis has been a home and a hub for training small business owners, aspiring entrepreneurs, current leaders of their businesses, folks who are looking to revitalize, all sorts of different folks just exploring or leading business. And we've been doing that for about 3 years, live, local, in Cincinnati. Well, as fate would have it, a pandemic strikes the world, and it accelerated some dreams of Ocean. And the dreams of Ocean were specifically to get this program that had such an impact on so many lives in Cincinnati online and in a digital format where it's easy to consume, where you can see it from wherever you are. You can engage it at your own pace. You don't have to be in Cincinnati to do it, right? But preserve some of the really great elements of that training. Preserve the live sessions. Preserve the community interaction. Obviously, because we're Ocean, it's core to what we do. Preserve the biblical and scriptural integration into the entrepreneur's training. And so that's the work that we've been up to for several months at Ocean. And we have just launched into the market this idea of Genesis Entrepreneurship Training. GET, we're calling it. It's live, it's online, it's digital. You can find it, oceanprograms.com/GET. And so we have 2 cohorts starting. We run these things in cohorts. You're with peers. You go through this in about 8 weeks with a group of other folks exploring the same questions and needs that you have, right? And we have 2 cohorts that launched. They were, this is sort of breaking news. We were going to start them today and tomorrow. We just sort of looked at the calendar. We looked at all the requests that were in our inbox and different people jockeying and trying to figure out schedules and stuff. And we said, you know what, let's just delay it a week. We have 2 groups waiting. They're eager. They want to start. We got 2 cohorts ready to go. And we just asked these folks, will you wait a week so we can add some friends to the mix? And so we are now going to start a week from today with our first cohort. So that is Tuesday the 29th, and Wednesday the 30th is when the cohorts kick off. So there's time to jump in to Genesis. So why are we here today? Why am I telling you? I'm setting the table to let you know that today we're going to hear from one of those alumni of the program when it was just this live program in Cincinnati. And I think this is a really interesting story because a lot of the folks we talk to, and a lot of folks as they think about Ocean or Genesis, they may think it's for someone that maybe just has an idea, or it's for someone that is like just starting their business. And the person we're going to interview today, this woman, Kate Petach, who's become just an incredible friend and supporter of Ocean over the years. She is someone who was running an established business and saw value and opportunity to attend Genesis. So Kate, welcome to this conversation. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Good morning. How are you doing?
I am good. I'm fired up. I have my tea here beside me. We're doing this before lunch. I think I have more energy before lunch. Somewhere behind the scenes right now, Michelle, our producer for this, is going, what is this? He's not really this energetic. I don't know. How are you? What's going on in your world?
We're good. We're hanging in there. I mean, life looks a lot different than any of us could have expected this year. And, I own, as you know, a wedding business. And so weddings look drastically different than they did, even 7 months ago.
Man, okay, so we're jumping right into it. Let's start right there. Weddings do look radically different. That has a big impact for you because you run a company called Blue Dahlia Events. I think I said it wrong. I always say that word in different ways.
I think
Blue Dahlia Events. And What's that?
It's tomato. It doesn't matter.
Tomato, right. And one of the big things you do, one of the primary things you do is weddings, right? So tell us a little bit about the company and sort of where you guys are at, and not specific to COVID right now. Just tell us about the company and why you love it so much.
So Blue Dahlia Events is a wedding coordination company, and we cater to couples that have largely planned their wedding themselves, and they need help the last 2, 6, 12 weeks prior to their wedding to help tie up those loose ends, communicate with their vendors, work with their vendors to make sure things go off without a hitch, and then of course, set up and run the day of their wedding.
Okay, so this isn't like the bougie, like the person that's like, oh, I've got what's the movie, the wedding movie where like the wedding. Yeah. This isn't like, oh man, I got like buku budget and big bucks and I've hired someone to outsource all this stuff. This is someone who's trying to do it themselves, kind of bootstrap their wedding, to use an entrepreneurship term. And then at some point realizes, I would love to be able to enjoy this actually, and focus on this actually. So maybe there's someone that could come in and sort of kind of crowd manage and I could outsource some support, and you kind of play this role, right?
Right. Yeah. And so, that's our sweet spot, is getting to help people celebrate, one of the best days of their lives, and allowing them and their guests and their parents and their bridal party or whomever it happens to be that would normally take on our role to really be able to sit back and enjoy it. And, I was talking to a mom over the weekend, and she was like, oh my goodness, before this, I never knew I needed a wedding coordinator, but I'll never host a wedding ever again without a wedding coordinator. Just because it alleviates so much of that stress and pressure from the family and from the couple on the day of.
And that's really interesting, because it's not just about the couple. It's about that ripple effect of the family members, specifically probably the moms, right? Wow, that's cool. That's super interesting. So when did you get that clarity for your business? Like, when was that always the through line, or was there a point where you realized like, this is what we can do? We can help people really enjoy their days by providing this like really great service.
Well, you kind of alluded to this in the intro. So I had the privilege of acquiring Blue Dahlia. And so that was always kind of the underlying theme or drive behind all of it. It's like, how do we take the stress and pressure off of these brides and grooms and their families and the other vendors, so that they can enjoy the day, or the vendors can do their jobs effectively and not have to manage other pieces and parts that they're not hired to do. And so, I think when I took over the business a couple years ago, I was like, kind of really dug my heels in on that. And I was like, okay, not only do I want to take the stress and pressure off, but how do I take that and how do I make sure people feel really loved and celebrated and cared for? I mean, that's always been my personality. If you Enneagram, I'm a number 2. And so kind of that helper and giver. And so I'm like, okay, how do I take that part of my personality? How do I take that part of myself and really institute that into this organization and make our couples feel loved and cared about and cherished?
That's great. Okay, so I'm tracking the timeline here a little bit. You worked for a company, this company, for several years, and then at some point, this opportunity comes up for you to acquire the company. Hey, do you want to not just work here? Do you want to own this joint, right? And so you go through some process of discernment and probably consternation and prayer and wisdom from friends, and you're like, okay, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this entrepreneurial leap. Did you always think of yourself sort of as an entrepreneur, or was this like, I did not expect that path?
No, I did not expect it. In fact, I'll give a Reader's Digest version, but 6 years ago, I had just become a stay-at-home mom. I was working in higher education. And we had made the decision as a family for me to stay at home with our boys. And my husband apparently knows me better than I know myself, and knew that I wasn't one to sit still for very long. And not that having kids allows you to sit still for very long, but he knew that the extrovert in me needed some external job or interaction or whatever that happens to be. And a friend approached me and said, someone bailed on us at the last minute. Would you like to work this wedding for us? And I was like, oh, I just became a stay-at-home mom and I'm trying to figure all that world out. And my husband said, do it. You don't know what it's going to lead to. And honestly, those words still echo in my head, because if you would have told me 6 years ago, hey, you're going to own this business in 6 years, I would have just started laughing. I never viewed myself as an entrepreneur. Now that I've had a taste of it, I love it. I think I didn't realize that was a part of who I was, but I love the idea of starting new things and kind of building things into, whether they're pre-existing or new options, building things into something that really serve other people.
That's cool. I love that. So I love that through line that you have in your life. I love the opportunity that you were faced with, that you took the leap. So then what part of you were, when you heard about, I don't know, when did you hear about Ocean? When did that come into your life? And why were you like, okay, I'm running this established business. I'm going to jump into this course and this program called Genesis. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. So through, as you were saying, like through all that discernment process of like, okay, is this what's best for our family to take over this organization? And, is this what fits our family? Is this what fits me? Is this, I'd always felt like when I stepped into this role, this was something I was designed to do. It's kind of like where your passion and your excitement kind of come to fruition and you're like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm supposed to do. So I wanted to make sure I wasn't jumping in too quickly. And so we consulted some really good friends of ours, some business leaders that were good friends of ours, Jim Cochran being one of them. And, making sure we're making wise decisions and seeking counsel on all of that. And Jim was actually the one that kind of brought it up to me. And actually, I think my husband might have, like, through One Life at the Vineyard where we attend church, had gotten a flyer for Ocean, and he kind of mentioned it to me. And then Jim asked me at church one Sunday, he was like, hey, I know you're taking over Blue Dahlia. I think this would be a really good option for you. And so the more research I did on it, the more I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I need, because I never necessarily viewed myself as an entrepreneur, or I certainly didn't take classes for it. I felt one of my big fears in taking over the business was that I'd never run a business before. And, the fears and imposter syndrome that kind of comes along with all of that. And so I knew I could run the front end of the business well. I knew I could work a wedding, no problem, but to do the backside of things and really make sure that what Blue Dahlia was and was becoming was what I intended for it to be. And so it really piqued my interest, because I was like, I know nothing about this. And I have the posture of a sponge. Like, I know I'm never going to be done learning in any facet of my life or any area. So the more I can learn and the more I can take in and glean off of other people that have walked this journey before, the more I want to do that.
That's a good posture. I think a lot of us could learn from that, and this desire to learn and soak in wisdom. I'm sure what you're saying right now is resonating with a lot of people. I don't know if folks are watching right now. A lot of folks watch this live. A lot of people watch it kind of later on and it comes into their feed. If you're here and you're watching, toss a question in, throw something out to Kate, and we can kind of put it on the screen and we can sort of engage around that. But I heard a couple of things just now, Kate, that I thought were really interesting. One is, I'm going to have to, doggone it, I'm going to have to give Jim Cochran another referral fee. This guy, he's just one of the good guys in our city here in Cincinnati, and he's one of the good guys in the world in general. Incredible leader at the Vineyard Cincinnati Church, and love that guy. So that's cool. I didn't realize that intersection. Yeah. He's a great man and a good friend of mine. So, but what you just said there about, I knew I could do the front end of the business. But the back end is where I had some imposter syndrome and I had some fear. And I think that's probably what resonates with a lot of people. There's kind of this timeless entrepreneur book called The E-Myth that unpacks this idea, and we use the example all the time, right? Of the cupcake lady. And it's like this person that makes really incredible cupcakes, and everyone's always like, you should sell these, you should start a business. And I just make cupcakes. I don't have time for business. I got kids and I got all this stuff in my life, right? And eventually he sort of convinces themselves to do this. And then they quickly realize that they're a really great specialist. I can make really great cupcakes, and I have no idea about how to do all the other things about how to sell cupcakes and run a business for cupcakes and do accounting for cupcakes and hire people to help with cupcakes and source materials for cupcakes and, all these things. And it can be so isolating and it can be overwhelming, and it can really see entrepreneurs kind of get, sort of pulled into a pit of loneliness and of isolation, and fear can set in and kind of grip the heart. And that's sort of the ethos of why Ocean exists. Like, we want that story not to happen. We want the fear and the isolation and all that stuff not to just grip the heart and the life of an entrepreneur, because we know the ripple effects of that. We know kind of the tangents that creates in someone's life. So So I'm affirming that how common that story is for you. Mm-hmm. So as you went through Genesis, how did you sort of start to experience some relief from maybe some of those emotions? Were there breakthroughs? Were there insights? Was there a community aspect that was like life-giving to you? Tell us just about the experience.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I really feel like Genesis equipped me with different business strategies or ways of thinking about entrepreneurship that in the back end side of things that I'm like, ooh, I hadn't thought about doing that, or I am actually more equipped for that than I thought I was. Like I'm already, sales, like I'm already selling myself, and I just need to kind of hone in what that looks like, or hone in my elevator speech, or whatever you want to call it. But I will say, honestly, you said something a few minutes ago that really resonated with me, was that idea that it's lonely at the top. When you're an entrepreneur, I have contractors that work for me, and I have a great team of people. But, when I'm making business decisions, at least on the side of Blue Dahlia, I'm doing so kind of in isolation. And one of the things that I loved about this training was that I got to meet other people that were in a similar boat in terms of like starting new businesses and things like that. And the community of people, like we haven't lately because of pandemic, but we try and get together and kind of keep in contact and really support each other. And our businesses are vastly different. One of them, she does bookkeeping. Another one, he does like life coach kind of thing. And another one does woodworking. And we're so, our businesses are so different. But every time we get together and we start to compare notes and we start to compare stories and encourage each other, it's like, oh, okay, like this is my community. And even though those businesses are so vastly different, there's so many common themes that come around with running a business that, it's easy to be like, hey, what would you do in this situation? I have, this and this happening. How would you handle that? And, even though they are different, they're able to kind of speak at it from that entrepreneur community.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, that's thanks for sharing that. That's powerful to hear that you found a home there. You found some resonance. And isn't it interesting, like you said, that businesses that are so different can have such the same human challenges, right? Some of the same pain points, some of the same frustrations and concerns can sort of rise up in businesses like woodworking and wedding planning. These are very different things, but the challenges fundamentally are kind of the same, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And so, just having the resource of, even our, instructors, Michelle and Shane were, they're still such a valuable resource for us to just bounce ideas off of. And so it's just, it's nice knowing that you're not alone. Like, in terms of business advice or commodity or just like a shoulder to cry on when things go crazy, it's just nice to know that there's a lot of options out there.
Yeah, that's cool. So one more thing on Genesis, and then I want to jump to some exciting new stuff in your life. What is was there a breakthrough, or was there just something unexpected, or something that was just like, man, that was worth every ounce of my investment here, right? Whether time or money or whatever, right? Like, I'm so glad that thing. Or is it hard to kind of pinpoint a thing?
I think it's hard to pinpoint anything specific, but the one thing that does kind of pop into my head is talking about pricing and knowing your worth. And kind of, we talked a lot one week about like how much should you charge? And because I have a service, I don't have a tangible good to say like, okay, woodworking, like the wood costs me this much money, the supplies cost me this much money. It's all my time largely. And so like knowing, the encouragement of someone standing there and being like, know what you're worth, don't undercharge yourself. Just really make sure that you are valuing who you are in your business and the resources and skill and professionalism that you can provide. I'm just really grateful that we were able to have those honest conversations. And I've talked to a couple of people that were in my class, and they're like, raise your prices. You need to raise your prices now, like kind of thing, when we're talking about where business is and where things are going. And I'm like, it's just affirming to have those kinds of conversations, because you think, oh, I'm just starting out in this, or, I'm maybe not as skilled as, this other person, and you never will be. But just knowing that what you have and what your service or your goods are valuable, and knowing your worth in that. And I think that was one thing that it gave me some confidence that I didn't necessarily have before.
That's awesome. I love that it gave you that confidence, because now you're this like black belt entrepreneur. You're just out here starting businesses left and right. Yeah. You've launched a new business in the midst of a pandemic, and it's incredible. So tell us about Be Married.
Yeah, so a friend of ours, she also works in the wedding and event industry. She does kind of more the styling and design kind of things. A year and a half ago, some conversations started around, elopements. And, I keep getting inquiries like, how do we elope? What are your pricing packages for Blue Dahlia for elopements? And nothing that I have specifically caters toward kind of that smaller scale event. And so the more I started talking to my business partner, Erica, about it, we're like, okay, she was kind of doing elopements on the side with another friend of ours. And we're like, okay, how do we make this work? And how do we make this more financially viable for people? So we just started having conversations, really honestly, about a year and a half ago about it. So well before the pandemic kind of took over. And then right before then, in the winter, we were having conversations with other vendors like, hey, is this something that would be viable for you? Would you be interested in this as a wedding business? And then honestly, COVID has kind of expedited the whole process, because, we went from people viewing weddings one specific type of way. Either you go and elope in, Mexico or Vegas or something along those lines, or you have this big wedding where you're from. And so we're trying to kind of meet that in the middle a little bit. So Be Married is a pop-up elopement company. It's a fully curated and stylized elopement. And couples can come in and, kind of our thing is you just need to bring who you're marrying and what you're wearing, and we'll provide the rest. And so, we just launched our first pop-up on Sunday, and it was so fun. It was, it's just a more affordable and smaller scale way and more intimate way to celebrate your marriage without kind of the big, ticket cost, but while still, getting the best of the best vendors in Cincinnati and not having to do all that legwork yourself.
Man, that is so cool. What an awesome innovation. It's amazing to see an opportunity. The heart of entrepreneurship is solving a problem, right? Yeah. And so you have all of these folks right now who have nothing but problems around their wedding, right? And they want nothing but calm, and they want nothing but sort of progress. They want nothing more than to marry the person that they love. They want to show up in their beautiful outfit with this beautiful person. So I love that you were like, hey, you don't have to bring anything except the person you want to marry and the clothes you want to wear, right? We got the rest. And I get it. It may not be how you drew it up a year ago. It may not be how you imagined it when you were a little girl. And you know what? There's opportunity to redeem that big visual cool thing sometime down the road with a big party and a big adventure and a big thing that you'll do. But right now, let's keep the main thing the main thing. And it's this person you love. And let's have a great day with your most intimate people in your life. Mm-hmm. And let us make sure that happens for you.
Exactly.
I love that. That's amazing, Kate.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's been super fun to see. And one thing I've noticed with clients on both sides, both companies that I've worked with, a lot of my clients for Blue Dahlia, the more traditional wedding clients, are having to replan their weddings, unfortunately. But it's interesting, the conversations we're having around that, because they're replanning their wedding and their perspective has shifted on what's important and what their priorities are. And, before, when it used to be a 300-person wedding, now it's kind of like, well, do I really need all of that? Do I really need, all the, bells and whistles and things like that? People are really focusing in more, I feel like, on what matters. And to your point, the main thing.
Yeah, I think that's true of COVID in general. I think it's really caused people to take stock of their lives and say, what really counts here? What really matters? Where do I want to invest my time? So, well, that's amazing. So folks can find your businesses online. I know it just popped up there. Here it is again, BlueDahliaEvents.com, and your sister company, JustBeMarried.com. That's amazing. Well, hey, if you do have any of these, fancy elopements, if you have folks that are looking to go to these exotic locations you mentioned, and they need a licensed, ordained minister to go with them.
Yes.
I don't know. I know a guy. I know a guy that's available for warm weather elopement destinations.
Perfect.
swoop in, do the vows, enjoy a nice getaway, let me know.
Totally on board. I know that. Yeah, that's something we're like, okay, as travel kind of is expanded, we're like, we are absolutely on board with traveling with you to Mexico and getting you.
That's right. That's right. Cool.
Especially right now, we feel that way.
Kate, you're awesome. Kudos to you for just continuing to innovate in the midst of everything going on in the world. Kudos to you for really taking some really brave steps over the last few years of your life. To leave a job, right? That to leave sort of a career path more than a job, and to step into entrepreneurship, and then to be humble. At Ocean, we talked about this idea of humility and courage. You got to have the humility to listen and the courage to act and do, right? And in you here, you acquire a business, and then you had the humility to say, maybe I should go get some education. Maybe I should go sort of engage here and increase my acumen and put some people around me and firm up the foundation of my life and my understanding around what it means to be not just a business owner, but a Christian business owner, someone who wants their business to reflect certain values and characters. And man, I love this conversation. We could chat forever. We're probably over the time we committed to. So thank you for jumping on. Is there any closing word you would say to someone who's like, I don't know, I'm on the fence. I'm not sure if I should do this training or not. I don't know why they'd be on the fence after hearing your conversation, but what would you tell them?
Honestly, do it. It's an investment into the long-term health and wellness of your business, but also into the long-term health and wellness of you as a person, as an entrepreneur. There's definitely something to be said with walking into a business feeling equipped to kind of handle what comes at you. And it's not just I show up for class and I leave. Like I said, the investment is so long-term that the resources and things like that I've been given beyond my Genesis class, it's significant. And so, you may look at it like, okay, this is an investment for, X amount of weeks, but it's been an investment for me for the last now, almost 2 years.
That's cool. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for taking the time and being with us. Hey, I'm going to let you go. Hang on in the backstage because I want to say goodbye to you, but I'm going to say goodbye to all the folks that might be out there. Thanks for being with us. Keep tuning into these. I love doing this. I love interviewing entrepreneurs. I love interviewing alumni from our programs and just hearing their stories because it lets you hear their stories. That's why I like to do it, because I just think that entrepreneurs are so special to the world. I believe that they are a force for good, that they can be a force for good. And I know the folks that go through Ocean programs, they come from this place and this heart that says, I want my business to count for something more. I want my life to count for something more than just accruing wealth or accruing opportunity, right? But man, I want to make a good impact in the world on the people that work for me and the people that I encounter and the people that I serve and my clients and the neighborhood that I'm in. Like, I want to do a good thing in the world. And so I love telling these stories, and I am thankful for those of you that are tuning in or checking these out in the aftermath. And hey, come join us. Come hang out with us. We're online, oceanprograms.com, and you can come into this training that Kate just talked about and told you about the impact in her life. oceanprograms.com/GET kicks off here a week from today, and we'd love to have you. So thanks for being with us. I'll see you soon.